So, Julio, we were talking about your parents, and I would like to know a little bit more about them and the therapy that you went through in the last week and what you understood about uh, your therapy in there. Thank you.
Yes, I went through a very interesting process called the Hoffman Institute, and it brought 18 total strangers together, all from various different backgrounds, but all wanting to understand more about the patterns we all have in life, about how we respond to situations or people, and what the commonality of those patterns may be and where they may be coming from. And there was a cycle they took us through, which started off by awareness, and then you go into expression, and then compassion, and into transformation. And I found it very enlightening because I'd never really stopped to think about what it means to be, the eldest child, and coming from the background that I did. So my father, my father's father died when my father was only 6. He had been gassed in the First World War, and he had a very long death with lung complications. And when he died in 1936, they didn't tell my father that his father was dead. So he was looking for his father, he says, for years. He was looking at bus drivers, he was looking at men walking down the street, he was looking at shop workers, he was looking at any man, hoping it was his father and returning to him. And it really made me think what it must be to be growing up without a male role model. And he had 4 very, very strong, much older sisters. So that gave me an understanding of his personality and how I would imagine at that age being the boy in the home. He wanted perhaps to control it, and how that's impacted him now. If you've got 4 stronger sisters, you want to be the boy or the man of the house. So it gave me a greater understanding of his character and how that would have impacted me as a child and later as a teenager. And then my mother is one of 10. Well, she was one of 10. A very interesting family as well, because 5 of them died very young of cancer in their 40s and 50s. And then the other 5 are still alive. So we've got very interesting genetic history. People either die very young or very old in my mother's family, but one of 10, and she was the eldest girl. So I think it's really made me think that sometimes when she can be such a perfectionist now, it's because she had to take responsibility in a family where everyone's competing, obviously, for your parents' attention. And in those days, competing for food, competing for everything. And I understand why as well my parents really pushed my sister and me in terms of education, because both of them came from working class backgrounds. My father managed to get a scholarship to public school, and he was incredibly bright, and that kind of brought him out of that impoverished background. And then on my mother's side as well, it was all about learning. They left school at 14. So she really pushed my sister and myself to read. And some of the patterns I've seen coming through that is I'm very bad at throwing stuff away. I tend to hold on to magazines and newspapers because, of course, I've seen that. My mother, it was like, you've got to everything you've got to read. You can't let something go unless you've got every single bit of information. So I feel it's made me a bit of a hoarder at the moment. So I'm trying to get over that and realizing I don't have to read everything. But you can see how these patterns from your parents come down into your life, and how sometimes you've got to fight against some of them and embrace others. I think what it also teaches is you kind of accept your parents' behavior, you react, or you rebel. And of course, different characteristics, one has a different response. So I think I've become very much a natural mediator. So anytime anyone's kind of arguing, I'm the one trying to keep the peace. So I've naturally had like a mediator role, and whether it's at work, in relationship. So it's made me really realize it's always me trying to bring peace and harmony, because I hate confrontation and seeing arguments and disharmony around me.